our goal is going to be that how can you select the most appropriate kind of backup option for yourself and also prepare for it without compromising on judiciary prep. So, if you're looking at private sector jobs or independent practice, litigation is the closest to your judiciary preparation because of the subjects that you've studied in. You've studied Civil Procedure Code, Indian Evidence Act, Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code, Constitutional Law. So all of this is very, very like closely related to litigation, right? So now, however, what you want to look at is that in which way is litigation related to judiciary and how is it different from judiciary, okay, as a private sector career option. Now, two ways you can explore litigation in. One is that you can start your own independent practice. It takes a lot for somebody to start independent practice as a fresher. A lot of young lawyers, what they do is they start working with a senior. Now the thing is that what kind of senior you get and what kind of salary you draw, and whether you are able to get independent clients or do independent work on the side, that is a function of the skill sets that you have acquired. Okay, so if you are able to, let's say if you are unskilled and you have absolutely no idea about, like you don't have an idea about the practical work, seniors may pay. There are states where seniors don't pay. Sometimes seniors pay anywhere between 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 per month. But if you're a really good junior, you can start off with 30,000 per month, and your income can increase also. And if you are earning 30,000 per month and having the ability to serve your own clients, if you get even one client per month additional or two clients per month additional, charging them 10,000 rupees for one matter, you can earn 40,000 to 50,000 per month. Okay, so this is if you are pursuing practice, but this opportunity is not sitting here like it's not waiting for you. It's not a guarantee that you'll get it. You'll have to create it, because as I said, the default salary paid by seniors is much lesser unless they can see that you are contributing to them. The other backup you can think of is working in a law firm or in a company as an in-house counsel. For freshers, if you compare the options, so one thing to know here is that a lot of judiciary candidates, aspirants I speak to, they very comfortably from second, third year itself, they say that I'm going to give the judiciary. If something doesn't work, then I will try to create a backup option for myself. But a backup option C is not waiting for you. You have to keep that in mind. There are people who are clear from their second year, third year, who want to work in corporate law firm jobs, yet, and they don't take all the right actions in time, which is why even those people struggle to get the right corporate jobs. Some people have very good internships to show on their CV, but that is not backed by enough skills and enough work, enough track record that they've done. So even despite being from good colleges, having great internships, they are unable to secure jobs when they graduate. So if you want to work in a law firm or in a company, you will need to from ahead plan this, because the kind of skills you will require will be different. So I'd say that there's way more overlap in a litigation career than in a law firm, or than working in a law firm or in a company. However, these skills are very much acquirable. Okay, so it's a different direction, but if you follow a structured learning path, you can acquire such skills in 1 to 2 years, spending 1.5 hour 1 hour a day at an average at your own convenience. Okay, that's how we help our students, so they can spend 1 to 1.5 hours and they've cracked the best job opportunities in any law firm with that, or in any company also. There are many students who've got fresher opportunities as in-house counsels. Okay, but this is different from the judiciary prep. It doesn't directly add on to the judiciary prep. The other option is that, for some of you, you want to think of this, that if I don't crack in my first attempt, I will need to give another attempt, but I may need a source of income on the side. So how am I going to do that? One of the ways to do that is to learn how to do some work independently. This may not be full time. This may not be litigation. This may be work like advising startups with various kinds of contracts, trademark related prosecution or registration work. There are things like helping startups with co-founders agreements, investment agreements. If you look on YouTube also, you will find there are sessions I have conducted on 20 legal skills to advise startups. Now, this is one of the easiest categories of work to get, and how it helps is that you can earn a survival cost relatively easily. Let's say you may be able to work about 10 to 20 hours a month out of 200 hours that you have. So I have 8 hours available in every day to work into 25 days is 200 hours. Out of that, if you're good and if you've learned some practical skills and you work for even 20 hours in a month, you can earn as you can draft like two contracts for a client and charge 10,000 rupees a contract, and that will also enable you to earn 20,000 rupees, which is a good supplementary income. Allows you also to meet some basic survival costs, not all your costs. If you need to earn a little more, you will have to spend more time, but at the same time you're not subject to 8 hour 9 hour office, not a full-time job. And because if a lot of you have been asking me that if I'm doing a full-time job, how can I study? So the best way, if you're doing a if you want to study and you want to earn, would probably be to freelance, because you have control over your time. You can reduce the kind of time you spend on your job and focus. But you'll have to learn what you'll have to learn what kind of you'll have to learn how to serve a particular kind of client, how to generate those clients, and how to do the work. Okay. Now, what is the challenge that we face as judiciary aspirants while creating backup options? So first is that we assume that if we don't crack the judiciary exam, we will look for some private sector jobs. But to create that option for yourself, you'll have to spend 1 year. That is the 1 year with structured learning. Without structured learning, people in second year, third year also are not able to create a job, are not able to secure a job by the end of fifth year because of lack of direction. Now the thing is that if you assume that private sector jobs are waiting for you, it's as good as just waiting one more year out, dropping out, and giving the judiciary exam again. Like, you will have to again do that same kind of work but in a different direction. Okay, so many candidates don't factor in this, that if I do not crack this and I pursue a backup, I have to give one additional year unless I have filled up for it during my preparation stage for judiciary. Okay, so you can't assume that the job is waiting for you, but you can learn the skill alongside judiciary preparation, and we'll also discuss how that is possible. Then if you're looking at government jobs, then you will see that the most amount of coachings, trainings, all of that is is for judiciary exam. And for the others, a lot of times you will not find as much guidance, as much free resources online. Okay, now you cannot assume that other competitive exams have a similar syllabus. I'll show you the government exams and you will see that yes, you can sit for these, but it's like saying that I give competitive exams and I want to give more and more competitive exams, but the syllabus is very different. Okay, even in like SEBI grade A exam, which was released this year, there was a notification out for them. So syllabus was hugely overlapping with judiciary, but the focus on the judiciary subjects was much lower, and the focus on the corporate law subjects was much higher. Okay, so automatically you can't repurpose for another exam. If you look at NABARD exam, for example, there is a different component altogether. So every regulator, for its own entrance, customizes the syllabus based on the kind of work or the skills they would need. So they will introduce new subjects. So we cannot assume that other competitive exams will have a similar syllabus. So we'll have to work hard to familiarize ourselves and learn the syllabus of the other exams. One of the ways to deal with this would be to choose an exam which is very closely modeled around the judiciary syllabus, right? So we're going to discuss that also. Then this is one very important reason people question their career choices from the early stage of judiciary preparation, whether they're in third year, fourth year, and then they say that I'm just exploring right now, let me explore like everybody else and I'll commit later. Now this can throw you off from your judiciary preparation also, and it can throw you off your backup also. So this is so definitely not a good strategy. Do not question your career choices, and you can remember that you can change your career choices later on. People have migrated from one option to another. Like, you can look at the example of Bharat Chugh. He was a judge earlier, then went to a law firm, was a partner at Luthra, and then he quit his job to become an independent practitioner. Okay, so we've got a webinar of him on our channel. So the thing is that You can change your career choices, but what doesn't work is saying I'm in exploration mode and not committing, because you will never have a final career choice for life. We are not people anymore in this, post, like our generation, post 90s. We've not been thinking of the idea that we're going to start our career in one job and retire in the same job. That used to be what our parents used to think, but now times are changing. So you can change, and there are many ways in which after you pursue a job you can quit and start something else. So don't worry about that, but don't use it as a reason to not commit. Then one more thing people do is they start late with judiciary prep, and then they will not have enough time to give to a backup, because judiciary prep itself will take you 14 hours a day of work. So to have a backup, you will need to have at least 1 hour a day aside if you're even using the benefit of structured learning, some guidance, additional courses. So you'll need some time to study those, right? Now, the next question is how to nurture your backup option. What do you need to learn? When do you need to start? One of the things to know is that you must start as early as possible with your judiciary preparation and fully commit. Otherwise, you will be like on the fence. And give yourself maximum time for both the judiciary uh, and your backup option. For public sector jobs, you must choose a backup which is close to your judiciary preparation. I'm going to just show some public sector backup options in a bit. For the private sector, you will need to learn practical skills which are relevant to the area. What are these practical skills that I'm talking about? Okay, this is very important. This is not there in the judiciary prep in the way it is done for clients, because see, as a judge your role is not to serve a client. As a judge your role is to um, to to s- to administer justice, right? To deliver justice. So here you don't have a client like that, right? But in a private sector job you have a client whose commercial interest you have to judge, you have to serve, and you may have to create a solution for the client which is more like a service. In term, when a judge is working, you are delivering, let's say you're listening, hearing the parties out, following the court process, writing orders, delivering justice. Okay, that's different. You're analyzing the law to identify the correct provision. So there is no specific service or a solution being delivered, okay, to a particular client. Okay, you are serving, you can say, the country or the interest of justice. Now in a private sector job, what are these commercials, these practical skills? One is I've written problem solving and structuring skills. There's something before that is called understanding the client's commercial intent. Okay, so if it is, let's say, an investor, who a financial investor who invests in a company, what is his or her commercial interest going to be? Okay, then after that you will understand what are the kind of deals he or she is looking at. Okay, what kinds of issues they are not okay with, like when they are investing in a company, how do they go about the whole process? So there will be problem solving and structuring skills. If I am investing, if I'm a US based investor, I want to invest in India, should I invest directly from US? Should I come from uh, Singapore? Through, should I first invest in Singapore and then invest in India? And should I use that route? Which is the better one? Okay, how do I deal with tax issues? How do I ensure that my foreign management gets paid the amount, uh, gets paid the salaries and the profits? What are the best ways to do that? So this, if you want to do that, this is a commercial problem you're solving, and you will use a structure of a transaction. Like you will draw a diagram, you draw a flowchart and see from where to where the money goes, how things happen. So it's very different from analyzing a statute alone. You analyze the statute to the relevant part, but then you will actually see the problem materialize. It's like a little bit of a game of chess kind of thing. Then you will need to look at, okay, when I'm doing this, when I'm executing this structure, there will be a compliance angle. So now the compliance here would require you to look at statutes, a lot of circulars, notifications, a lot of delegated legislation that is being passed by various regulators. Sometimes they issue instruments called clarifications also, which may not be, binding in the sense of statutory law, but they are relied on by all commercial participants while while taking undertaking transactions. So so now popular regulators could be like MCA, RBI, various other ministries. If it's in the airline sector, then the DGCA will be important. So compliance is an angle. Okay, CS doesn't deal with all the compliance parts. They will deal more with the MCA part, but other compliance is also there. If you are in the telecom sector, there'll be lots of compliance with TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. If you're in insurance sector, there will be IRDA related compliance work also. They'll also say how your contracts have to be drafted, so you have to follow that as well. Like there's an interesting thing in IRDA in insurance contracts, which those of you studying contract law will find it interesting, that when you get an insurance policy, a lot of the times what the insurer will do is they'll take the premium, and after that they will send you the policy. But the IRDA gives you 30-day period to cancel the policy, in which case the policy gets cancelled and the premium is refunded. Okay, so that's a very unique way. Like after the contract has been agreed upon, the regulator says that 30 days are given so that the customer can understand the risks and cancel and back out if he needs to. Then there is drafting work. So as a judge, you're doing more of the judgment writing work, and you're looking at procedurally whether the submissions of the parties are in order, and then evaluating the substantive arguments. But in a private sector work, you're going to look at drafting various kinds of commercial contracts. And if you look at litigators um, or judges also, they would have not usually gone into the commercials of the deal unless it comes into picture in a matter and it is explained by the briefing firm or by the client. Okay, but as a commercial lawyer, you will need to know the economics of the transaction well. You don't have to learn economics as a subject. You have to learn who basically makes the money, how they make the money, who delivers the service, what are the interests of each party in question. Then you will also draft various kinds of notices. There are legal notices, there are takedown notices, cease and desist notices. Then there are notice of commencement of arbitration. There are notices under IBC. So there are some statutory notices. There are some non-statutory notices. Then there are various kinds of responses to letters or communications from statutory authorities, show cause notices to which you have to respond to. Let's say you got a notice from SEBI and it says that some practice performed, your client got a notice saying that some practice that they performed was a fraudulent trade practice. It led to stock prices fluctuating a lot, and SEBI said that something your client did led to it, so you have to respond to that. Then there are various kinds of petitions and court related drafts that you have to make, so you have to draft documents. This is a practical skill, not learnt conventionally in colleges, not in the legal drafting or writing subjects that you study in college doesn't teach this. Even 1% of what is required in practice is not taught in that. So this needs to be learned in detail. Communication and client handling skills are very important, which are of a different category, right? Like you will need to understand how to communicate regarding your services, how to actually get to the root of the matter with the client without boring him with technicals. Okay, and and how to demonstrate that you're a superior service provider. Or when you're working with a firm, even then you need to communicate to clients because the firm has a particular reputation and a brand name, so you will have to communicate in a certain way so that you represent that. If you're sitting for government exams, then choose government jobs whose syllabus closely matches that of judiciary. So let's just see which ones match. Okay, UGC net with or without CLAT LLM. UGC net matches significantly. Okay, we've written which are the starting salaries written. We've written which are the overlapping subjects. There are some unique subjects. Okay, so in all probability, you would have not studied those while you were studying for judiciary. So you will need to study those again, afresh. You would have studied those in your LLB course, but from the purpose of the exam, you will have to study them again. Okay, degree of competition also I've mapped out because you want to know that am I up for something as difficult, or is it going to be a little simpler for me? So competition is lower in comparison to judiciary. Assistant prosecution officer or assistant district attorney, public prosecution officer, these are the names that APO exams have. These are conducted by state public service commissions. These are definitely having a lot of overlaps. This is an exam you must definitely give. Okay, this is the favoritest pick, if I could use that word. This is the most important one because you'll have IPC, CRPC, Evidence Act. You may have constitutional law in certain states. There will be the relevant states. Some criminal procedure, specific criminal court rules could be there. It's focused on criminal procedure because you'll be a prosecution
officer. Okay, so civil work is not there. Constitutional law will be there. The state's police act will be there. This is the easiest to repurpose. Okay, and salaries are decent, so it's not that you have to take a big hit or a pay cut. Positions with RBI, NABARD, SEBI Grade A, people frequently opt for that, but remember that the subjects are quite different. RBI has an indicative, RBI Grade B officers has an indicative syllabus which overlaps significantly with judiciary. But if you look at the SEBI Grade A officers exam, it overlaps with judiciary, but it also has a lot of focus on corporate law subjects, and the focus on the judiciary subjects in terms of weightage is lower. Okay. The NABARD exam similarly has a lot of focus on different aspects. So the thing is that there the additional preparation becomes very high. Okay, so which one you could use? You could use the RBI Grade B in comparison much more easily. You can have the others if you're interested. SEBI, but you will have to prepare separately. SEBI Grade A, you can prepare separately. There are trainings and all of that available. We also have a SEBI Grade A course. Okay, so you can prepare separately for some of them. So to the extent of repurposing, you will need to do that. UPSC law option, but here salaries are good, everything is great, but here the competition is much higher. That is what you must remember. There are some unique subjects. All subjects don't overlap. Okay, some unique subjects are there and competition is higher. That is what you must remember.